You ready to suck it up, Buttercup? Because today we're diving straight into the most painful injuries you could ever experience. Torn ACL. It's the bane of every professional athlete, one of the most common sports injuries, and one that can easily end your dreams of being a global superstar. From Tom Brady, Chipper Jones, Teddy Bridgewater, and… wait, Tiger Woods? Really? As we were saying, torn ACLs are a nightmare for professional athletes engaged in extreme performance sports such as golf, apparently. Yeah, the sport where you drive to your ball after you hit it. Anyway, torn ACLs are caused by sudden and very rapid changes in direction. Your anterior cruciate ligament connects your knee bone to your shin bone and is responsible for 90% of your leg stability. When you suddenly change direction and your ligament tears, your leg can't properly support you anymore, and you'll be on your way to a very quick introduction with the dirt. If the tear is small, you can typically get away with rest and rehabilitation, though beware because even a small tear can take you out of the sport's action for up to a year. This is the reason that the injury is so dreaded by professional athletes, who in effect can tank an entire season and even part of a second season with just a small tear. However, if the tear is severe enough, the entire ligament might need to be replaced with surgery. In that case, your torn ligament will be replaced with a grafted-on tendon that can be taken from another part of your knee or from that of an organ donor. Think just because you're not a pro athlete, you're not at risk. Think again. ACL tears can occur from everyday things like jumping and landing wrong, doing squats improperly, twisting your leg in a fall, and just sitting there watching your favorite YouTube channel. Only one of those is made up, and we're not telling you which. Speaking of tearing things, if you like using your arms, this next excruciating injury will leave you crippled for up to a year and a half. Torn ulnar collateral ligament. Let's stick with ligaments for now, because your body is full of them and they are extremely prone to ripping, tearing, and generally disintegrating into dust inside your body. And when they do, it's a one-way ticket to the worst pain in your life, both from the injury and the very, very long and painful rehabilitation process. Most common in sports that involve rapid overhead movement, such as baseball and discus throwing and the javelin, this injury leads to the tearing of the ulnar collateral ligament, which is located in your elbow. As the most important ligament in providing stability for your forearm and elbow, a torn ulnar collateral ligament is not only painful, but can make any activities, even non-sports related ones, impossible. You can trust us on this one because the writer of this script is writing from personal experience. Like a torn ACL, you might hear a pop when you first suffer the injury, after which, if the tear is small, you'll experience extreme pain radiating from the inside of your elbow and will generally be unable to move your elbow very far without extreme distress. If the injury is severe enough to tear your ligament completely, you'll need surgery to replace the torn ligament and as much as a year and a half to recover. Baseball fans might remember that this injury used to be fatal to ball players until an experimental surgery in the late 1970s replaced LA Dodgers pitcher Tommy John's torn ligament with a tendon from his forearm. Our next injury is not only very common, but absolutely devastatingly painful. Fractured leg. So you broke a leg. Big deal. God gave you a spare for a reason. But wait a minute, because severely broken legs, and we mean injuries to the point of thoroughly shattered bone, can be one of the most painful injuries you'll ever experience. You can break a leg in any number of hilarious ways, as a quick YouTube fail video search will show you. However, shattered legs are only common in extreme situations such as high-speed car crashes, air accidents, and very high falls. When Alcides Moreno survived an incredible 47-story fall as a window washer, his legs were so severely fractured that doctors briefly considered amputation. In the old times, amputation would have been about the only option, as a severe enough leg fracture would have prevented the leg from healing properly or fusing back together correctly. What would result would be a deformed leg that could end up completely useless. Modern medicine, though, has gotten a lot better at putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. Often in severe fractures that can't be treated right away, perhaps because of the severity of your other injuries and the risk of surgery, an external fixation is used to keep the bone together while you await treatment. These are typically metal rods that are screwed directly into your bone, but the rod remains outside of the body. Metal plates can be used to hold the pieces of broken bone together if the fracture is severe enough, and those plates can either be left in the patient or removed after healing. Screws are also commonly used to hold your pathetic bones together while they heal, and like the plates, might be left in or taken out after healing is complete. Screws can actually come in many different shapes and sizes depending on the need, and are used alone or in conjunction with other attachments. In severe fractures of the long bones, nails or rods are inserted into the hollow center of the bone, which would normally contain bone marrow. The rod runs the length of the bone and screws are used to keep it in place. The rod provides stability and prevents the fracture from shortening or rotating until it's healed. If your bone has shattered like glass though, you'll end up receiving treatment using wires and pins that will literally piece back together the confetti that your bone is turned into, giving it a chance to heal and fuse back together in one piece. If the fracture was severe enough, doctors have no choice but to leave the wires in for life. The next injury on our list not only leads to extreme pain, but possible lifelong paralysis. Fractured vertebrae. All of the injuries we've covered so far can be recovered from, even if very painful rehabilitation can take a very long time. Vertebrae, however, are kind of the prima donnas of the skeletal system, and once they can go for good with devastatingly painful consequences. Vertebrae can be fractured in a variety of ways. People with severe osteoporosis, a disease that weakens the bones, can fracture a vertebrae just from sneezing, which must make allergy season extremely terrifying for them. People with tumors on the spine may not even be aware of the tumor until it's eaten away enough of the vertebrae and causes it to collapse. However, by far, most people fracture vertebrae in sports, falls, and car accidents. Fractured vertebrae can lead to a host of medical issues. You might get lucky and only suffer severe back pain, sometimes lasting for life even after the bone is healed. Or you might get unlucky and suffer partial or complete paralysis. If the damage is severe enough and has affected the nerves that run along the spine, that paralysis too might last for life. Treatment for a fractured vertebrae can be surgical or non-surgical. In non-surgical treatment, the vertebrae is allowed to heal on its own, which means you'll be left in crippling pain for several months. While medication can be effective, doctors are wary of prescribing habit-forming opioids, and thus you might be left with nothing but Tylenol to fight off the pain. A relatively new procedure known as vertebroplasty can be used to treat severe fractures surgically. During this procedure, a needle is inserted into the spine and used to pump the collapsed vertebrae with bone cement, which hardens within minutes. A more refined version of this technique uses a balloon which is inflated inside the affected vertebrae to create height, which is then filled in with the bone cement. This helps restore the fractured vertebrae to something closer to its original form and can dramatically reduce long-term or permanent pain. With either treatment option though, there is no guarantee of pain relief. But when the pain you're experiencing is literally in your mind, no amount of pain relief can help. Traumatic brain injury. Every year, 1.4 million Americans suffer traumatic brain injuries. Most sufferers of traumatic brain injury will experience chronic pain that can last for months. Unlike acute pain, such as what you might feel when you break a bone, chronic pain is persistent and can be very difficult to treat or manage. Medicines typically used for acute pain don't work very well at treating chronic pain, and their long-term use can either be habit-forming or risk serious kidney and liver damage. People with TBI usually suffer from several different kinds of pain. The first is headaches, which usually start right away after the injury, but can manifest months later. These can range from your typical headache you might feel when sick to more intense migraines which last for hours and feel like someone is driving a spike into your skull. Chemical changes in the brain or damage to its structure can result in neurological pain. This pain typically has no cause and results from the brain misfiring and creating phantom pains that your nerves dutifully report. Individuals might feel like they're burning, have electricity coursing through them, feel cold, hot, or experience painful numbness and tingling. The fact that there is no physical cause to the pain, which can also manifest anywhere on the body, can be extremely maddening to deal with. TBI can also result in spasticity, which is a condition where the muscles don't react the way they should. While the condition itself doesn't cause pain, the failure of muscles to react properly can lead to very severe pain. For example, a muscle may remain flexed long after it should have been relaxed, resulting in severe pain. If you've ever experienced the delight of a Charlie horse, you'll know just how terrible this type of pain can be. Now imagine that you're getting hit with that level of pain randomly across any muscle of your body. Given how delicate and complicated the brain is, traumatic brain injury pain can be extremely difficult to manage, especially when it has no obvious source. While most people will recover over time, some unlucky few will have to suffer their pains for the rest of their lives. They say childbirth is the most painful thing that you can experience, but our next injury can affect both men and women and rivals childbirth in levels of gut-wrenching pain. Kidney stones. While not technically an injury, kidney stones are still one of the most painful things you can experience and something that will absolutely bring you to your knees in tears. Your kidneys are responsible for cleaning your blood, and if you have a poor diet, are overweight, or take some supplements or medications, minerals and salts can start to accumulate in your kidney. The various materials making up the kidney stone will typically crystallize as the urine is concentrated, and while some can be flushed out before they get big enough to notice, others will happily live rent-free in your kidney until they grow quite big. How big? Well, Vilas Guge of India holds the world record for a 5.11-inch wide kidney stone that had to be surgically removed from his kidney. The average kidney stone, however, will only be the size of a chickpea, which really isn't that big, until you consider that you have to pass it through your pee hole. Oh, and the stone itself is typically very sharp and jagged, like one of those Super Mario spike balls. The pain typically begins when the stone begins its path out of the kidney. At first, this can mean slight discomfort, which can be associated with back pain. As the stone crashes through your urinary tract like a ping pong ball, the pain very rapidly increases to truly excruciating levels. Remember, you're trying to push something as big as a chickpea through a tube barely big enough to accommodate it. Oh, and that chickpea is jagged and pointy all over. Even the strongest opiate pain medications can sometimes barely begin to cover the pain, which has been compared to childbirth. Luckily, the pain pretty rapidly subsides after the stone passes through the system. If, however, you're unlucky enough, like this writer was, to have a stone large enough to cause a blockage, you're in for weeks of crippling pain and agony that'll leave you bedridden. Especially if the VA refuses to approve surgery and basically tells you to just keep drinking water, you'll push it out eventually. During a blockage, urination is extremely difficult and can feel like high-pressure lava is escaping your body. The blockage can also lead to infection as you're unable to fully drain your system of urine, and an accompanying urinary tract infection, already an extremely painful condition, becomes the cherry on top of a delicious cake of pure human misery. Now, go watch the most painful things humans can experience for more misery, or click this other video instead.